Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have a quorum, so we're going to get started at 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Members of the public may access the meeting or participate in the following ways. 1, watch the meeting live or record it. Individuals who wish to watch the meeting may view it on the District of Summerland YouTube channel at youtube.com, District of Summerland, live or recorded. Secondly, register in advance to speak during the meeting. Members of the public who wish to provide comment during the public comment opportunities found under items 8 and 15 are asked to register in advance by contacting the corporate officer at corporateofficer@summerland.ca and provide your name, your civic address, and how you will be participating, whether by Zoom or by telephone. Further details will be given to you when you register. The third way to participate is to request to speak during the meeting. Those who have not registered in advance but wish to speak during the public comment opportunities may connect to the meeting by calling the meeting conference line at 778-907-2071 and entering meeting ID 506-489-9374. and passcode 485186. After I have provided everyone who has pre-registered with an opportunity to comment, the floor will be open to those on the conference line. Corporate Officer, are there any late items to introduce?
There are no late items, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And we're on to approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Karen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It has been requested and through a vote of council to amend the agenda by removing item 12.1, which is the notice of motion from Councillor Barkwell.
Okay, thank you. Is that the only amendment? Councillor Carlson.
I would still like to speak about the solar project tonight, whether it's in a Councillor Barkwell's motions or in some other capacity, because I think that I have something to say. And after what we've been through the last 2 weeks, I believe I have a right to say it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carlson. Karen, how should we do that? Maybe I'll just ask you this first, Councillor Carlson. In your comments, did you want to make a notice of motion?
I could, if that is the best way to proceed.
Okay, thanks for that. And now I'll go back to you, Karen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's possible if there's a notice of motion to bring that forward under item 12. That's open to any of the council members at any meeting. Okay. The other option would be, of course, under any councillor reports at the end of the meeting. So that is an option as well.
Councillor Carlson?
Yeah, I just want to note that it looks like Councillor Holmes isn't here. I don't know if he's having a hard time getting on or if he, but he's not online right now. I would like to speak to it. So I guess a notice of motion. I don't think I need 2 more weeks to dwell on it though. So I'd like to make a motion tonight, if that's appropriate, or add my comments at that time. Yeah. It's on the same topic.
Sure. Madam Mayor, that's fine, and it will be up to council if they want to pass any motion this evening or bring something back. Okay,
thank you very much. So the adoption of the agenda with 12.1 as it is printed in the agenda with Councillor Barkwell being removed and then replaced with potentially at least a notice of motion from Councillor Carlson under 12. Correct? Okay. So there's Councillor Holmes. Councillor Holmes, did you hear that? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I got the gist of it. I just got the tail end. I'll have a notice of motion too, but we can cross that bridge when we get to it. Thank you.
Okay, so I will ask for approval of the agenda as amended. Councillor Holmes, Councillor Traynor, all in favor? And none opposed. Okay, good, we've got that out of the way. Now on to adoption of the minutes from the evening meeting of February the 8th. So that was our last evening council meeting. Anything that is looking out of place there? If not, if someone could come forward with a motion. Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Seconder. Councillor Holmes, thank you. And all in favor? Great, thank you. No bylaws. Fairly short mayor's report tonight. In December 2020, the federal government announced that regional consultations for the new Canada Water Agency would run until March the 1st, 2021. The agency is being established to improve freshwater management across Canada. On February the 16th, I attended 2 hours of the Regional Freshwater Forum for BC. The Okanagan Basin Water Board, of course, was there as well. Representation was there. They have already made a submission. On February the 17th, I and Councillor Holmes attended the first in the Southern Interior Local Government Speaker Series. Due to COVID-19, we are unable to meet in person, so the executive has created a virtual series of 8 speakers on a variety of topics of interest to local government. Our AGM as well will be virtually, we can't meet in person. Jason Locke, the Community Planning and Sustainability Manager for Kamloops, spoke about the public engagement used when the city created the North Shore Neighborhood Plan. Also on February the 17th, Councillor Patton and I attended the Development Process Improvement Advisory Committee meeting. On February the 18th, I attended the first of weekly calls for mayors and chairs with Interior Health. As you've heard, the vaccination program will be wrapping up in the coming days, and health authorities are looking to local government leaders to help them get the facts out about the program. Immunize BC is an excellent source of information, including comprehensive, frequently asked questions, which cover dose timing, vaccine allergies, timing on your vaccination, and more. You can find that at immunizationbc.ca. Updates will be posted. Actually, I didn't check with staff on this, so I'm just going to say this. Updates will be posted on our website at summerland.ca and on the district social media platforms. So then you can go to those as well to get to the Immunize BC website. Thank you all in Summerland for continuing to follow the public health orders and keeping your family, friends, and neighbors safe. Thank you. That's it. And over to you, CAO Stat.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. For my report today, I wanted to make Council aware that last week I participated in the Domestic Farm Worker Steering Committee. Several CAOs from the South Okanagan were in attendance, as well as the provincial lead, Jennifer McGuire, who is an Assistant Deputy Minister in the Agriculture Department. On behalf of the district, I tentatively committed to the use of 14 sites from our Peach Orchard campground once again, with the expectation that the ministry would once again provide self-contained shower and restroom facilities for the workers. I also indicated that we would begin as early as May if there's a need to do so, but we do request financial support for this partnership. The Assistant Deputy Minister indicated that this is a priority of the provincial government. However, she could not at that time commit to specific funding because the matter requires final Treasury Board approval, which is still pending. The senior management team will be working on a process to provide quarterly updates to council on council's strategic priorities. We hope to develop the process and jointly present to council in April for the first update, which will see each priority project identified by council presented by the accountable senior management team member, with the opportunity for council members to ask questions or provide direction. Finally, I wanted to mention that the resolutions deadline for the Southern Interior Local Government Association, also known as SILGA, is February 26th, 2021. To date, we have not received any indication from council if there's a desire to put forward any resolutions to SILGA. However, we'd be pleased to schedule time in the next few days if a discussion should take place on this item. And with that, I'll conclude my report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions on the CAO report or on my report? Okay, great. So we'll go on to the first of two public comment opportunities this evening. We have a maximum of 15 minutes in total with 2 minutes per speaker. I have Michael Healy is our first speaker, and you have joined us by Zoom. If you would like to go ahead, Michael, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Boot. Good evening, Mayor Boot and council members. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I was planning to talk about Councillor Barkwell's motions concerning the solar plus storage project. So I'm wondering if these comments are irrelevant, if he's withdrawn those motions, or should I continue?
It's completely up to you. We are going to be speaking. Councillor Carlson will be coming forward with speaking about the solar project. So it's completely up to you, Dr. Healy.
Okay, well, maybe I'll quickly continue then. I'm a retired professor of environmental science from UBC, and for the past decade, I've been engaged in issues around climate change in the Okanagan. I'm also vice chair of First Things First Okanagan, a Penticton-based society dedicated to raising awareness about climate change and promoting positive actions to address climate change. I think many of you know this organization. My wife and I recently purchased property in the Summerland district, and an important factor in our decision to own property in Summerland was the council's progressive attitude toward electrical energy production and distribution. So we were really excited by Summerland's solar plus storage project. This project brands Summerland as a very progressive BC community with an eye to the positive future for distributed energy. The district should benefit in many ways from this project, including increased power reliability, a reduction in peak power demands from the grid, improvements in power quality, and other benefits. I actually believe the project will also serve as a catalyst for economic growth and for greater implementation of alternative energy in the district. So I was very disappointed to read about Councillor Barkwell's opposition to this project in the Penticton Herald, and now with his motions to make the description of this project on the district website very negative. If he's withdrawn those motions, then I'm very happy. But if he brings them forward again, I urge council to defeat these motions and to continue your inspiring work to keep Summerland at the forefront of progressive BC communities when it comes to climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Healy. And Steve Richards, are you joining us by phone? No, I guess not.
We don't have Mr. Richards on the line.
No, okay. And I don't see him on the Zoom call, so I will assume he has changed his mind. All right. Okay, so on to development reports. 9.1, development variance permit for 13614 Canyon View Road. Sorry, Kenyan Road. Wow. DVP 21-001, and that's for you, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council. Let me just share my screen here. All right. So the district has received an application for variance to decrease the minimum required rear setback in order to facilitate the construction of a new modular home at 13614 Kenyan Road. The subject property is a vacant lot on Kenyan Road. The lot was recently created as a result of a 2-lot subdivision at 13615 Cartwright Avenue that was just registered with the Land Titles BC on August 31st, 2020. In the OCP, the future land use designation of the subject property is low density residential. It is zoned RSD1, residential medium lot. These land uses are consistent with the neighboring properties. The applicant is requesting variance to section 10.1.6A2 to reduce the minimum required rear setback for principal structures and buildings from 7.5 meters to 4.9 meters. While reducing minimum setbacks on residential lots is seldom encouraged because it can disrupt the form and character of a neighborhood, the variance proposed for this development is made out of necessity due to existing physical constraints on the lot. 13614 Kenyan Road has a decreased depth of 24.73 meters that was approved by council through a development variance permit in order to facilitate the aforementioned subdivision. Additionally, a 3-meter wide electrical utility easement on the southern side of the property line was registered as a part of subdivision. This easement further impedes the buildable area on the property and makes it difficult to site a modular home according to the required setbacks. The modular home will be sited such that it is in compliance with the required front and side setbacks and only encroaches into the rear yard. The placement of the home as specified on the site plan should not affect the form and character of the neighborhood. Staff have recommended approval of the proposed rear setback variance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Council, any questions of Alex? All right, could I ask someone to bring forward the recommended resolution for the variance, please? Councillor Holmes, thank you.
I'll move the council authorize the issuance of development variance permit 21-003 for a property located at 13614 Kenyan Road, legally described as Lot 2, District Lot 3640, Osoyoos Division, Yale District Plan 9912, and that a variance to the following sections of zoning bylaw 2000-450 be granted. Rear setback section 10.1.6A2 to vary the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 4.9 meters proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a different format. They changed it up.
Yeah. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Okay, any further discussion on this? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Alex. And don't go away. 9.2 is coming up. Yeah. Development variance permit 9567. Sorry, permit at 9567 Robson Crescent, DVP 21-002.
Perfect. All right. Okay, so the district has received an application for variance to decrease the minimum rear setback to allow for an addition to an existing home at 9567 Robson Crescent. In the OCP, the future land use designation of the subject property is low density residential. It is zoned RSD1 residential medium lot. These land uses are consistent with neighboring properties. The property owner is proposing to construct an addition to an existing dwelling. The existing dwelling does not fully conform to the current zoning bylaw setback requirements specified for the RSD1 zone, projecting into the rear setback more than 4 meters. The new development is proposed to when new development is proposed to a non-conforming structure, the non-conformance must first be addressed before the development can proceed and building permit can be issued. As such, in order to facilitate the proposed addition, a variance has been requested to section 10.1.6 A2 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the required rear setback from 7.5 meters to 3.39 meters and bring the dwelling into conformance. It should be noted that the building labeled future shop/garage on the site plan is not a component of this variance application. A subsequent variance would be required to allow an accessory building to be sited in the front yard. While reducing setbacks on residential properties is seldom encouraged as it can disrupt from the form and character of a neighborhood, the variance proposed is not anticipated to negatively impact the streetscape. The house has been encroaching into the setback since it was built in 1970. Further, the proposed deck and living space additions will not further encroach into any required setbacks. Although the requested variance is large, it is required to legitimize the current siting of the dwelling. When new development occurs to a non-conforming property, it is an opportune time to bring that property into conformance with the zoning bylaw through the approval of a variance. As such, staff have recommended approval of the proposed rear setback variance. There we are.
Thank you. Questions, council? I just have one question, Alex. So with the expansion, the proposed expansion, that is within the new, I guess, setback that is before us tonight?
Yes, exactly. So yeah. the proposal for the new sections of the home all comply with our current zoning bylaw.
Right. It was just to bring it into conformance. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Who wants to give a go at the at the staff recommendation or something different? Councillor Traynor?
Sure. The council authorizes issuance of development variance permit DVP 21-002 for a property located at 9567 Robson Crescent, and that a variance to the following section of zoning bylaw 2000-450 be granted to vary the minimum front lot setback from 7.5 meters permitted to 3.39 meters be approved.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Van Elfen. Any further discussion on this variance? Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And Alex, 9.3, development variance permit for 6108 Solly Road, DVP 21-003.
Okay, last one. The District of Summerland has received an application for variance to allow an overheight retaining wall to replace an existing retaining wall at 6108 Solly Road. The existing retaining wall on the property is severely cracked and leaning, as shown in the photos. This wall is not structurally safe and is needed to be replaced. The applicant proposes to build a tiered retaining wall structure comprised of 2 separate walls to replace this existing wall. Section 5.5.4 of the zoning bylaw limits the maximum height of any retaining wall to 2 meters. The intent behind the 2-meter retaining wall regulation is to prevent from the construction of imposing monolithic walls that would fundamentally alter the character of a neighborhood and have impacts on neighboring parcels. This also prevents the artificial altering of landscapes to dramatically increase grade for building purposes. The retaining wall plan identifies the retaining walls as retaining wall A and wall B, respectively. The lower wall, wall A, will measure 2.4 meters in height, while the upper wall, wall B, will measure 2.8 meters in height. As specified in section 5.5.2 of the zoning bylaw, the minimum horizontal separation between individual retaining walls on the same parcel must not be less than the height of the lowest retaining wall. The proposed wall B is set back from wall A a total of 2.4 meters, satisfying this requirement. The retaining walls at 6108 are to be sited in the rear yard of the property and will not be highly visible from adjacent properties or from Solly Road. The proposed retaining wall height variance is being recommended for approval due to its limited impact on adjacent landowners and overall neighborhood character. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Council, any questions? Well, pretty compliant tonight, Council. Could I have someone bring this forward? I know there's always a delay as we try madly to find it in our agendas. Councillor Carlson.
Says I'm supposed to hold down the space bar and it'll go off mute, but apparently not. I will move that council authorizes issuance of development variance permit DVP 21-003 for a property located at 6108 Solly Road, and that a variance to the following sections of zoning bylaw 2000-450 be granted. To vary the maximum height of a retaining wall from 2 meters permitted to 2.4 meters proposed for the retaining wall A, and to vary maximum height of a retaining wall from 2.0 meters permitted to 2.8 meters proposed for retaining wall B to be
Thank
granted.
you. Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Holmes? And any discussion on this variance? I guess there are two variances. Okay, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Well, zipping right along. 9.4, OCP and zoning bylaw amendment for 9800 Turner Street. Ariane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay. An application was received to amend the official community plan future land use designation and to rezone 9800 Turner Street to facilitate the construction of a 17-unit multifamily building. The subject property's official community plan future land use designation is medium density residential, and it's zoned for the residential strata housing zone. The uses within the surrounding area are mostly residential, including a multifamily development to the west of the property and agricultural land around the periphery. So these photos provide a little bit of context to the property itself, and specifically to the slope and the surrounding area from along Thompson Street or Thompson Road, and then also from within La Vista. So, oh, again, here are some more photos from within La Vista and then again from Thompson Road, which give a nice overview of the community. So the proposal, or this proposal, represents the final phase of the La Vista developments, which began in the early 1990s. There's quite a bit of history to this parcel, as the original concept was to continue the medium density townhouse development located at the west of the parcel. So to continue that townhouse development onto the subject property. So looking at this image here, you can see these three buildings. There are 3 or 4 units in each one. And that was intended to continue onto the subject parcel with another 2 buildings added. But due to over time, the developer eventually chose to go in a different direction with this parcel, and it's remained vacant since. So access and services to the parcel from Turner Street are established through easements and right-of-ways over La Vista Country Estates. And again, this kind of shows that this property was always intended to be developed, and particularly for multifamily construction. And just to give some preface or some context, this is the access from Turner that goes all the way up to the parcel here. So at this time, the developer is requesting a change to the official community plan land use designation to high density residential, and to rezone the property to residential high density to facilitate the construction of a 17-unit multifamily building. The proposed concept consists of 12 apartment units fronting Turner Street that are accessed through La Vista, and 5 townhouses abutting Thompson Road. Of the 17 units, 12 would be 1-bedroom units and 5 would be 2-bedroom units, with sizes ranging between 815 square feet to 1,270 square feet. The OCP and zoning amendments would be the first stage of bringing this development into fruition. The applicant has noted that they would like to have the land use secured before formally bringing forward the multifamily development permit, which would address form and character, and also the development variance permits that would be required for lot coverage, some minor setbacks, and then also bicycle parking. And they would bring these forward to council for future consideration should the OCP and zoning bylaw amendments be approved. So I'll speak to the renderings and design in greater detail soon, but I wanted to first introduce the concept just in a very preliminary stage. So the image on the left demonstrates the townhouses abutting Thompson, and the image to the right is from within La Vista. And it's within that image that you can also see where access to the parkade is from. And now I'll just go into some of the floor plans. So this is the first story of the proposed development. So all parking is provided on site and meets zoning bylaw standards. Resident parking is located within this discrete 21-stall parkade located on the ground level of the proposed building, which is accessed from Turner Street. And then 5 visitor parking spaces are provided in front of the townhouses on Thompson, which I'll show in just a moment. So so on the first floor, there are a few different suites, and then as we move up from the first, second, and third story, there are a few more suites. The second and third story are quite similar. And just a few things to note with these floor plans is that each unit has its own storage and mechanical room, which would be able to facilitate bicycle parking, again, at a later date for when variances are considered. And the developer is also proposing amenity space in the form of guest suites. So should the residents of this apartment building have different visitors come and stay with them, that they would be able to use this space to be able to have their guests stay with them, particularly because they're 1- and 2-bedroom units, which, you know, when folks come to visit the Okanagan, it's nice to have that flex space to be able to offer your guests. So again, just going up to the 4th story onto Thompson. So these are the townhouse developments, and then located in front of these units are the visitor parking. So these would be visitor parking spaces for the entire development, although they do front in front of the townhouses. So the developer noted that this project is intended to cater to households looking to downsize, which is reflected in the proposed floor plans. And the units are quite modest in size, and they have these separate storage areas and amenity spaces that include separate guest suites for residents, visitors, and they also have large covered patios as well. So the urban growth strategy identifies the urban growth area as the primary planning tool when considering new development and intensification of land uses within the district. Infill development is strongly encouraged within the growth area to limit suburban sprawl and to contain development around a central core that can be efficiently serviced. The proposed multifamily development is located within the growth area and on a parcel that is currently serviced and is vacant. This proposal aligns with the objectives of the growth strategy, as the lot is currently underutilized and is also located within close proximity to existing services in the district's central core. The OCP also encourages confining high-density residential developments to areas primarily surrounding downtown and lower town due to their proximity to services. The appropriateness of high-density development is evaluated on the following criteria that are listed on the screen in front of me, and I'll be going through each of these different policy considerations in greater detail. So the first is compatible with adjacent land uses. So the adjacent parcel to the west of the property is zoned for residential medium density and currently has a multi-family townhouse development. Like I said, there are currently 12 units within or on this parcel. And that the original plan for La Vista was to continue this development onto the subject property. And here you can kind of get a sense for, how the project was intended to come onto this property. So really, since the early 1990s, this part of La Vista has always been intended to accommodate some kind of multifamily development, and the proposed OCP amendment and rezoning to facilitate the development of 17 units is consistent with this adjoining use. So the configuration of this site and its steep slope pose considerable development challenges. The applicant's proposal to build into the slope and stepping back the development with each story works with the current landscape, but also benefits the streetscape within La Vista Country Estates. And then also from Thompson Road by aligning the, so by having the townhouses reflected in the current townhouse developments that were developed in the 90s. So stepping back development reduces massing of the building from the street. It also reduces shadows and creates a more friendly scale for pedestrians and the surrounding single-family homes. Furthermore, the proposed townhouses along Thompson Road reflect the current form and character of the primarily single-story family and row housing buildings adjacent to the subject property, which creates a cohesive design along the street. And as previously noted, resident parking will be located in a discrete parkade, and this design consideration works with the landscape and also respects the residential character of the surrounding area, but by not introducing a large parking lot. Okay, so high density development is encouraged along collector and arterial roads, which are identified in this image here by the green and blue lines. However, most roads within close proximity to downtown, the preferred area for high density development, are local roads. And although Turner Street and Thompson Road are classified as local roads, the constraints of finding appropriate high density residential development on lots within close proximity to downtown and along collector or arterial roads may be quite restrictive. So one example of this is along Rosedale Avenue, which is identified as a collector road. Approximately, or more than 350 linear meters are owned by the school district. So it's just something to take in mind when we consider what kind of land is developable and suitable for multifamily developments. All right, so the property is located within walking distance to businesses along Rosedale Avenue, the downtown and parks and schools. Most walking routes to these services are pedestrian friendly with sidewalks on one or both sides of the street. The sidewalk master plan illustrated here shows the future pedestrian networks that would enhance the connectivity from this site to both shops and services, and particularly along Victoria Road, where the sidewalk is proposed on both sides of the street starting at Turner. So a lack of housing diversity was identified as one of the key issues in the 2017 Affordable Summerland report. The housing stock in Summerland largely consists of single-family homes, and alternative forms of housing are either aging or in drastically short supply. There's an identified need to diversify housing options away from predominantly single-family development and within the urban growth area to accommodate future housing demands. multifamily development specifically present opportunities to address housing concerns beyond one demographic. Apartments and townhouses offer a more affordable ownership option for those entering the market, and they also provide alternatives to seniors looking to downsize and age in place. The combination of apartments and townhouses of varying sizes and bedroom configurations in this proposed development directly address this community concern. The image to the left here illustrates how little of Summerland's total land area is allocated towards medium and high density, and particularly in the lower downtown and lower town. So having more diverse housing options requires land uses that supports multifamily development, which is currently not well represented within the district. Another thing that's worth mentioning as well is that staff recognize that La Vista Country Estates is currently a 55+ community. However, the applicant has noted that the proposed development will not impose age restrictions for residents. Staff support this direction as it creates more diverse housing options that cater to a variety of demographics, including seniors. Now, it should also be said that if future owners choose to adopt age-restrictive bylaws, they can do so with votes from 3/4 of the Strata Corporation, as was similarly done for La Vista Country Estates in the late 2000s. So this application was circulated to internal departments for comments. The Works and Infrastructure Department noted that water modeling would be required at the building permit stage to determine any upgrades that would be required along Thompson Road. And additionally, a legal review of right-of-ways and easements registered on title confirmed access to the property and sewer service through La Vista Country Estates. And as per our new land use procedures bylaw, the developer held a public information meeting on January 22nd. The meeting was held over Zoom and included a presentation from the developer and their architects and allowed for participants to ask questions. The developer also held a second meeting on January 27th at the request of La Vista residents. So this application was considered by the Advisory Planning Commission on January 22nd. Members acknowledged that the development meets minimum parking standards, but thought that visitor parking may be insufficient for the site despite meeting zoning bylaw requirements. There was also a general consensus that the design of the building, particularly the parkade and amenity spaces and guest suites, is innovative and well suited to this site. They noted that these design considerations should set a precedence for future development in Summerland. And with that in mind, the APC recommended that the OCP amending and rezoning bylaws be supported. So there is an identified need to offer more diverse housing options within the district that cater to a wide range of demographics and income levels. The variety of unit configurations, thoughtful design, and proposed housing types aligns with district policies, and as such, staff recommend that this application be given first and second reading. Additionally, staff's initial recommendation was to hold a public hearing on March 22nd, and staff would recommend changing this date to March 8th. There is the potential for 2 public hearings to be held on March 22nd, with lots of interest already generated within the community for each application. So to ensure that those who wish to speak to council about the applications don't have to wait too long, staff are recommending that this public hearing be held on, or that the public hearing be held on separate dates, and that this one, if supported, be held on March 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariane. Council, do we have questions? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder if you could, if I could get an explanation, I guess, on the relation with the strata. This will become part of the strata, and if so, can you maybe elaborate on how the 55+ thing works? I mean, if the strata wants it to be 55+, how could we say it can't be? Yeah, maybe so, you could explain that.
To the chair, this would be a separate strata. Yeah, so there currently are two different stratas. There's La Vista Country Estates, which is where you see the single family homes within La Vista. And then the other development on the ridge is another strata. Okay,
then to follow up, if I may, then to access the properties through the other strata, does the strata, the La Vista strata, have a say in that? And how does that work?
Sure, Brad.
Yeah, we did a legal review, and there is existing covenants on title with the existing strata, La Vista Estates, for both access in terms of traffic and vehicular access to this lot from the district's road on Turner Street, and then also access to and right-of-way access to the district sewer utility to the site. And those existing covenants are on title with La Vista Estates to and benefiting the existing property owner.
Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, just follow up. I mean, accessing, for district to maintain the sewers is one thing, but accessing for 17 unit owners is another thing entirely, I would say, especially if you live on that road. I'm wondering why the parking arrangements, why for the townhouses the parking has to be accessed through La Vista. Why don't they access on Thompson, which it looks like to where they're located, and also with the parking on Thompson for guests, is that guests for just the townhouse or the guests for the whole unit? And I find the whole parking arrangement a little bizarre.
Yeah, so the architect has noted that because it's visitor parking for the entire development, and that the parkade below would be secure. So I think that's for convenience. If you have somebody come over instead of having them come into a locked parkade, that's my understanding as to why they chose to have the parking located off of Thompson.
Councillor Carlson?
I just want to add to that, just so Councillor Holmes, if you've seen the location, it would be impossible to access it from Thompson Road because it's on quite a hillside. But I understand your question or your concern because it obviously is significant change for the folks who live on that street.
I have a question, Ariane. You've already answered the strata piece. Do you know if the developer is the same developer as has the units to the west? It's the same, yes.
It's the same developer from way back in the early 1990s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and so the buildings, at least in the mock-ups that you gave us, look quite different. So it's just updated, 20 some years. Yeah, the style has changed. Okay, and their market housing. Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, I agree with the diversity. That's great. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could get clarification from Brad, please. So there is a reciprocal access agreement through La Vista with the where the multifamily are on within the complex, where the parking is. Am I wrong that the reciprocal access agreement is not with the developer, but it is with the strata now, since the developer does not have any interest left in the buildings? So I'm for clarification for me. So if we're going to have a reciprocal access agreement, then would not the strata where the single family dwelling are need to be involved with a separate reciprocal access agreement, since you're increasing the usage of that strata road, which is a strata road? It's not a municipal road. So of course, it's not built to the same standards as what a municipal road would be. So I guess my question being is how does the developer utilize an existing reciprocal access agreement that he's not tied to anymore?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Patton, for that question. And through the mayor, the developer owns the subject property still. So the reciprocal agreement is between himself as the subject property owner, and then also La Vista Estates as the other party in this access agreement. So the strata, if this was put in place by the developer at the time, I think he had foresight that this access would be required for this parcel. It was put in place with the strata when he was setting up the strata, and himself as a person as the owner of this property.
Excellent, thank you. If I may, one more question, Madam Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I did notice that in the correspondence that there is a lot of negative responses for the construction of the new building. For my benefit, can you tell me how the public the developers' meetings went with the residents of La Vista? Is there any more acceptance to it, or is it still as negative as what we're seeing in the council reports?
I'll let Ariane answer that one.
Yeah, I attended the meeting on January 22nd, and there were definitely concerns raised that I think that are reflected in the correspondence. That being said, as far as form and character goes, there were some questions about the massing of the building and that the style was too modern for the community and that it wouldn't fit in. And the developer has said a few different times, and including in this meeting as well, that he's willing to work with the community to, try and develop something that would be palatable to them, as whether it's, colors or materials or things like that, especially since he's noted that some folks are actually looking at moving into those buildings as well. So there's definitely, from what I've seen, a line of communication between the developer and then also residents within La Vista as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Okay. So could I have someone bring forward the two motions, noting that the public hearing is changed to March the 8th from March the 22nd for each of the amendments? Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Carlson.
All right. I will move that the OCP Amendment 9800 Turner Street Bylaw number 2020-013 be read a first and second time. That zoning bylaw amendment 9800 Turner Street Bylaw number 2020-014 be read a first and second time, and that a public hearing be held on March 8th to receive public feedback on Official Community Plan Amendment 9800 Turner Street Bylaw number 2020-013 and zoning bylaw amendment 9800 Turner Street bylaw number 2020-014. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Traynor, thank you. Any further discussion about these zoning and OCP amendments? Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I look at this, I expect to see a development that looks exactly like the townhouses or fourplexes or whatever they are that are to the west. And I think that the residents there quite rightly have the right to expect a development, this 1/10 or so of the development to be finished off in the form and character and massing of the existing buildings. It's going to look a little bit like a fish out of water. It obviously wasn't done at the time because of the slope requirements, and now we've changed those, and so they're going to go into it. So I will go along with this only to the public hearing, and what I hear at the public hearing will have a big influence on whether I would support this, because right now I see that there's an awful lot of opposition to it from the people that live there, and like I say, quite rightly, I think they have the right to expect something that fits in exactly just like the other 90% of it's not a gated community, but it's pretty darn close to it. And to come along later and put something different in there, well, I think you're going to have to show a lot of support before I can support it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motions that are on the floor? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. And Ariane, boy, your development services has been busy. My goodness. 9.5 OCP and zoning bylaw amendment for 8709 Jubilee Road. East, I guess.
All right, so an application was received to amend the official community plan future land use designation and to rezone 8709 Jubilee Road East to facilitate the construction of a 60-unit multifamily building. The property's future land use designation is low density residential intensification, and it's zoned for the residential pocket neighborhood zone. And as you can see from this image, there are a variety of land uses within close proximity to the subject property, including medium and low density residential, institutional, and commercial uses. This property is locally known and referred to as the old RCMP site and has been vacant for several years now. So these images here provide a bit of context to the site and also show the BC Tree Fruits Wall and the surrounding single family homes and multifamily homes on Jubilee and Richards. The development proposal for this site is a 60-unit affordable housing project that would be owned and operated by Turning Points Collaborative Society, a nonprofit based out of Vernon. The applicant has applied to BC Housing's Community Housing Fund, which requires a mix of incomes with rents and incomes within the building, including 30% of the units allocated towards market rate rentals for those with moderate incomes, 50% rent geared to income, and 20% for low income. The concept consists of 13 one-bedroom units, 37 two-bedroom units, and 10 three-bedroom units with sizes ranging between approximately 550 and 950 square feet. The applicant has also noted that accessibility is a priority of this project, and approximately 30% of the units will meet BC Housing and CMHC accessibility requirements, which includes barrier-free common areas and units located on the first and second story. The OCP and zoning bylaw amendment applications are the first stage of bringing this development into fruition. If the land use designations are amended, the applicant has noted that they would apply for a development variance permit to reduce the number of required parking spaces and increase height of the building from 4 stories to 5 stories. They would also apply for a multifamily development permit that would address the form and character of the building, and these applications would return to council for future consideration. But the application on the table right now is to consider the use of the land. So the urban growth strategy identifies the urban growth area as the primary planning tool when considering new development and intensification of land uses within the district. Infill development is strongly encouraged within the growth area to limit suburban sprawl and to contain development around a central core that can be efficiently serviced. With respect to this property, it's located within the growth area and on a parcel that is currently serviced and vacant. Infill development on this site and within such close proximity to the downtown aligns with the objectives of the growth strategy that encourage compact community development around a central core. Additionally, the official community plan encourages restricting high-density residential developments to areas surrounding the downtown core due to the proximity to services. The appropriateness of high-density development is evaluated on 6 criteria, and these will be discussed in further detail and are the basis of staff's analysis as well. So, as previously discussed, land use designations within the surrounding area consist of medium and low density residential, commercial, and institutional uses. Adjacent properties to the south, east, and north are zoned medium density and have higher density form than most of the housing in close proximity to downtown. For example, Linden Terrace, located across the street from the subject property, is a 3-story multifamily residential complex. Additionally, the proposed development acts as a buffer from the existing BC Tree Fruits commercial operation to the west. And the image at the top here illustrates just how this proposed development can act as an appropriate buffer between heavier commercial zones to lower density housing. Furthermore, high density developments are compatible with diverse land uses because they contribute to and support complete communities, which allows people to live, work, and play in vibrant neighborhoods. This site is within walking distance to downtown, services, schools, and recreational amenities, which aligns with this objective. So the renderings provided by the applicant at this time are purely conceptual and are intended to demonstrate the proposed massing of the building and layout. If council chooses to amend the land uses, the applicant would apply for a multifamily development permit, which would address the form and character of the building and also the landscaping. At this time, the proposed site plan illustrates how landscaping will be used to soften the appearance of the development, particularly along the periphery of the property. And as I mentioned, though this will be explored in greater detail should the applicant apply for the multifamily development permit. So again, high density development is encouraged along collector and arterial roads. However, most roads within close proximity to downtown, the preferred area for high density development are local roads. Although Jubilee Road East is classified as a local road, the constraints of finding appropriate high density residential lots along collector and arterial roads within close proximity to the downtown may be too onerous. Precedence for multifamily development has also been established through the Linden Terrace and Silver Birch Place developments along Jubilee Road East, and this proposal is in keeping with the land use patterns that have been established within this area. So most activities and services can be accessed by foot from the subject property. Although the sidewalk connections along Jubilee Road East are currently intermittent, the sidewalk master plan identifies sidewalks on at least one side of the street, which would connect with the existing sidewalk that's already along the road. The Works and Infrastructure Department has also noted that this section of the sidewalk is in the district's 5-year capital plan, but is currently listed for design in 2024 and for construction in 2025. So single detached houses are the predominant form of housing within Summerland. This type of housing often represents the highest end of the housing continuum and is unaffordable and inaccessible for a variety of demographics and income levels. Renters, seniors, and people with disabilities are particularly impacted by a restricted housing spectrum that favors ownership above other forms of tenure. This proposal is an opportunity to incorporate a more diverse housing options that are not well represented within the district. This graphic illustrates the housing continuum and also the various forms of non-market and market, or the various forms that non-market and market housing can take. So outlined in red are the proposed housing forms addressed by this project. So being social housing, affordable rental, and then also market rate rentals. So over the next few minutes, I'll be speaking to issues identified within the Affordable Summerland framework, but much of which are connected to the lack of diversity within Summerland's housing spectrum. And I think that having this graphic in mind when considering this proposal and how it aligns with the housing spectrum are important. The Affordable Summerland report identified 6 key issues that are barriers to affordable housing in Summerland, including a lack of housing diversity, high housing prices, high land prices, lack of rental homes, and a lack of subsidized housing. Housing in Summerland overwhelmingly consists of single detached homes, and the multifamily developments that do exist are aging and may not be suitable for families. Renters, seniors on fixed incomes, and people with disabilities are particularly affected by the lack of robust housing options within the district. The 2016 census also noted that 445 households are experiencing core housing need, and of those, renter households are disproportionately affected. And and this graphic here, I think, is quite powerful, and then it demonstrates how Summerland's non-market housing has largely been focused on seniors housing. This is certainly an important demographic to address, but there aren't any non-market housing options for families or for younger demographics that still need assistance but don't qualify for housing because of their age. So diversifying housing options in Summerland to meet the needs of a wider population is a tangible goal, and the unit configurations and attention to income that are the essential characteristics of this project directly address this community concern. So, an internal referral was circulated to district departments to collect comments on the proposed development. The Works and Infrastructure Department noted that frontage street improvements and water main upgrades would be required at the building permit stage, and this information has been provided to the applicant. The applicant also held a developer-directed public information meeting on February 18th, where they presented the proposal to approximately 80 participants. After their presentation, participants were given an opportunity to pose questions or comments to the panel, and the agent has noted that approximately 120 comments and questions were asked during this time. So the application was also reviewed by the Advisory Planning Commission. The commission supported the application and the diversity of housing being proposed. Although not included in this application, they did raise concerns about future variances for parking and height associated with this project. And they wanted to see improved pedestrian connectivity along Jubilee, as the lack of sidewalks in this area could pose a serious safety concern. The ACP or APC supported the OCP amendment and rezoning, and also recommended that future sidewalks along Jubilee Road East, as identified in the sidewalk master plan, be considered a district priority and implemented in tandem with this development. So overall, the multifamily and affordable housing components of this project, in conjunction with its proximity to downtown, closely aligns with district objectives in the official community plan, the 2017 Affordable Housing Framework, and with Council's stated 2021 strategic priorities to broaden the affordable housing options in the community and enhance downtown vibrancy. As such, staff recommend that the OCP and zone amending bylaws be given first and second reading, and that a public hearing be held on March 22nd, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariane. Council? Councillor Barkwell.
2 questions, if I may, Madam Mayor. Have any community amenities been negotiated for this change, OCP change? And
I can answer that through the mayor. No, we haven't negotiated any community amenity contributions, if that's what you're referring to with regards to this project. Yeah, that could be something that council considers, perhaps with the discussion of height and variance to that down the road.
Okay, I mean, other developments have had, contributions, oasis down at the lakeshore. Lighthouse Landing. I view this one a little bit differently. Maybe that it's an affordable housing project, so we would negotiate a little bit less hard. The other, or maybe, you know, we've spoken about even going the opposite way. But that leads me to my second question. If this project doesn't go ahead as affordable housing, does the developer have to come back to us then and we can negotiate amenities at that time?
Yeah, through the mayor again, Councillor Barkwill, to answer your question, right now what council is considering is just the rezoning to high density. So there's no special requests other than the zoning that the developer is requesting at this moment. That could change when the form and character and the height and the number of units is further narrowed down with the developer at that point. And so when a development permit is brought forward to council, there may be further discussion at that point as to what type of amenity contribution that the district would either contribute to or request of the developer.
So would the developer be able to do a high density development with this zoning change without requesting any development permits?
Through the mayor again, that we do require the issuance of a multifamily development permit prior to issuing a building permit for all multifamily development permits.
I just don't want to see something completely different come up if this doesn't go through. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Van Elfen, I think you had your hand up. And then Councillor Holmes.
My question was answered. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I attended their information session last week. I thought they did an excellent job at presenting. It's certainly, and they had 63 people attending, which was fantastic, and a lot of good questions. Most of the questions were in regards to the variances that they bring forward. So I won't go there until we need to or if we have to. But one of the things that came up, and I see it was addressed by our APC, is the need for sidewalk. The lack that there's a lack of sidewalk, and if there's going to be a high density development there, it's really hard to imagine not having sidewalk access to Rosedale. So the APC recommended that the sidewalk be built in tandem with whatever construction is going there. And if the design, if it's in our sidewalk master plan, the design is until 2024 and construction 25. I'm just wondering if we would need to look at reprioritizing what we have in our sidewalk master plan. I don't know offhand what order of things we're planning for sidewalks and what's coming when and what would need to be bumped, but I think we might have to have that discussion.
Brad.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, thank you, Councillor Holmes. I did, following the meeting of the Advisory Planning Commission, I did touch base with Chris Johnson, Director of Works and Infrastructure, and indicated to him that there, with this development, that the priority of building a sidewalk on I think we're targeting the north side of Jubilee, may be required. And he indicated back that there are councils identified 4 or 5 other high priority sidewalk extension projects as well. So if this is something that council wants to consider, then I think it has to be brought back at a later time in terms of reprioritization of those projects if council wants to see the sidewalk happen fairly soon.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Barkwill?
No, I was just moving my screen.
Oh, okay. Okay, Councillor Trainer.
I'll bring forward a motion if no one else has any questions. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So that the official community plan amendment for 8709 Jubilee Road East, bylaw number 2021-005, be read a first and second time, and that a zoning bylaw amendment for 8709 Jubilee Road East, bylaw number 2021-006, be read a first and second time, and that a public hearing be held on March 22nd, 2021 to receive public feedback on the official community plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Trainer. Councillor Van Elfen is seconding. Further discussion on these motions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that's unanimous. It's carried. Thank you, Ariane. 9.6 under development reports comes from our Director of Development Services, Brad, about the January 2021 Development Services Department monthly report.
Actually, kudos to Ariane again for preparing this one. She just makes me look good by having this report come monthly to council. So it's actually a good report to come forward. You can see that we're continuing our activity that I presented on at our meeting in January with regards to the high growth scenario of 2020. It's continuing into the early part of 2021. Just in terms of applications received, we're starting off on a kind of high pace for planning applications with a total of 10 applications, which is well above our normal for this time last year for planning applications, but also for the building permit side of things. We've received a total of 22 building permits in January, which again is up to a record pace for this year, and construction value of $3.08 million already in January. So kudos to my staff and for processing these applications in timely fashion and get them out the door in January. So I'm happy to take any questions too that council has on any of the applications we provided updates for.
Great. Questions? All right. Could I have someone bring forward the resolution to accept this? Councillor Van Elfen. Councillor Carlson is seconding. Any further discussion? Nothing from me except that, yes, I'll add my thanks and kudos to your department, Brad, and your staff. It's great to see that. Good start. Okay, all in favor? Great, and none opposed. So that carries unanimously. And now we are on to item 12, notice of motion. And I will ask Councillor Carlson to take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a procedural, can I make a motion? Or does it have to be something that is talked about next time?
Well, it's the will of council, Councillor Carlson. So if you'd like to present something and get council's agreement to pass a motion, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to make the following motion to reaffirm that council will complete the integrated solar and battery storage project in its chosen location. Can't hear you, Madam Mayor.
Pardon me. Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Holmes?
All right.
Okay. So the motion is on the floor if you would like to speak.
Okay, thank you. This it's taken a lot of my time and energy in the last couple of weeks. So before I begin, I'd like to let you know that I've got a little bit to say here and it could take a while, but this time is valuable and a lot of hours have been spent by members of the public, as well as by Mr. Barkwell, as well as by council and staff over the last couple of weeks. And so I hope that we can have a little bit of a conversation tonight and get some things clear. Okay, first of all, I'd like to touch on the story of how the solar and storage project came to be. In 2014, a newly elected council looked at the former directive to staff to determine the value of the district-owned electrical utility in anticipation of selling the asset. New council in 2014 put the brakes on this because it was determined that we should explore opportunities to invest in our utility and create our own energy that would enable Summerland tax ratepayers to have a more resilient system that they could be proud of and would work far into the future. Options were explored and an integrated project was determined to be the way forward. We needed to have a component of storage in order to initiate peak shaving and potentially bring the wholesale electrical rates down. It would also help make any renewable energy project more viable. So the energy source, which was solar, it was chosen because it is proven technology, it isn't complicated and cheaper, and we get a lot of sunshine, especially in the summer months. It was chosen as a jumping off point, and it's intended to build capacity and give our utility some resilience and some independence. We made a council decision to invest in our utility. We made a council decision to put alternative energy as a strategic goal. We made a council decision to take climate change and the climate crisis seriously by putting it into our strategic goals. We made a council decision to do the solar and storage project, and the federal government made a decision to fund this project 100%. We made a council decision to site this project on Cartwright at the old municipal yards. And we made a council decision to clean up that land and go to RFP for a contractor who has been hired to complete the procurement and installation of this project. We've made a lot of decisions over the last 4 years. 6 years, in fact. By writing Mr. Barkwell's side of the debate in the media and receiving vacuum silence from the rest of council, he has succeeded in making some wonderful and smart Summerlanders the entire since.
Wilson, you're freezing.
Sorry?
You were freezing up there.
Oh, okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
The last I heard some smart
District of Summerland's Wi-Fi it should be working. How about now?
Sounds
everybody's frozen.
Tony and Aaron are frozen for me.
Yeah, me.
Because we're at City Hall. Is it working now?
It is, yeah, but it's cutting out. So we can't hear what
so
you're
we're
saying.
all everyone frozen, is that?
Just you and Tony and everybody at City Hall's frozen.
Yeah, okay, that's a problem.
Council, just a heads up that our IT support is actually looking into this right now.
Would you like me to continue? If I speak on Will this work now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Can others hear Aaron, Councillor Carlson? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to continue by using my phone. All right, I'm going to start here. By writing his side of the debate in the media and receiving vacuum silence from the rest of council, he's succeeded in making some wonderful and very smart Summerlanders believe that the project is contributing to climate change, that it's over budget, and it's going to cost them money. And I can't believe that he has been allowed to do this. I believe that this is an ethical problem. Why hasn't Councillor Barkwell told the story? He's attempting to undermine staff, provincial data, and decisions made by council over the past 6 years. Council isn't doing a simple solar project. We're doing an integrated project that couples solar and battery storage. Staff have acknowledged that it will be maximum value only if integrated between the two projects. Solar itself isn't going to make the same money that if we have the battery project. $3 million worth of federally funded batteries is what's going to make this project feasible in our community. These batteries can store power from the solar panels, but they can also store power from the regular grid. There's great value to this, and there's even greater value if we someday can scale it up. Further, Councillor Barkwell has made people believe that tomorrow a developer is going to give the town $2 million for a serviced parcel of land that would require rezoning as completely surrounded by environmentally sensitive areas 1 and 2. Barely 5 acres available for development in its current state. He has people believing that the city will receive this $2 million and it will go towards affordable housing and better roads. I understand the property has been a potential development site for longer than I have been alive. And nobody has developed it. So this council has chosen to finally develop it and to generate some revenue. Once the project is done, whatever potential that the former mayors and former and current councillors believe that it has for housing, it will remain. That potential is not going anywhere. I don't believe that the highest and best use for that land at this point in time is houses. I believe we should generate the projected $200,000 per year in electricity that this project is going to make instead. Council annually discusses the transfer of funds from the electrical utility to the general fund. It's a philosophical dilemma, and a question remains as to whether it's a fair way to move money around within the district. I have data going back to 1995. In the past 25 years, our electrical utility has moved $20 million into the general fund. It not only covers administration, buildings, and finance, etc., in the running of the utility, but it's also a lump sum which annually goes to help pay for other municipal projects and costs, including our roads. If this project goes ahead, we won't need to take as much of that ratepayer funded utility revenue because we will have more available from the utility-owned electricity generation. Council knows that we're looking at a $20 million voltage conversion project and it needs to be done eventually. If we can keep some of that electrical revenue in the electrical fund, we should, and we should race towards getting that project done. We have been the recipient of $6 million in funding from the federal government. It's a project that is 100% funded by the federal government and a project based on the detailed analysis done by professionals in the industry that will more than pay for itself over its lifetime. The current opportunity cost of not putting the solar and storage facility at this location is at a minimum $6 million, because that's what we will lose if we don't proceed. We will also lose our focus, our strategic direction, and our reputation as a community that has tuned into the reality that it's time to decarbonize the world economy. If we don't actually believe that the world economy is ready to decarbonize and that the future is electric, then we should stop pretending that we care. And we should do what Summerland does best, which is fight about it. I can't believe that the fight right now is about which renewable energy source produces more carbon emissions. The fossil fuel industry is loving this. So if we pass this opportunity by, it will never come back. And our ratepayers will continue to shoulder the burden. We will be seen as that BC community who, instead of taking $6 million from the feds and investing it in our future, that built 80 houses on top of a mountain. So this land isn't going anywhere. It's still going to be there in 30 years, and I'm going to be here too. I care about this town.
And I care about the people who have written in their opposition because they have been misled. And council debate happens at the council table, not in the media. Don't do it again.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Holmes, I see your hand up. Before I go there, I just want to let council know that I want to speak a little bit later tonight about a phrase that Councillor Carlson used. As a phrase about ethics and ethical behavior. So I will be doing that a little bit later. It's 7:30, so we have some time. Councillor.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, who's speaking?
Yes, it's you, Councillor Holmes, and then to Councillor Barkwell.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to, I guess, reiterate a few, or pick up on a few things that Councillor Carlson just said. It seems to me that there's some people out there who are okay with the storage component of the project, but don't like the solar panels. And as Councillor Carlson said, this is an integrated project. The $6 million grant that we're receiving from the federal government is for the whole package. It's like buying Microsoft Office suite. You might buy it for the Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and they've got all these other things which you might think is completely useless. But then you wake up one day and there's a pandemic, and you discover you actually have Microsoft Teams, and that's something that's quite useful right now. And so it's like, you know, it's the whole package. This is what we're getting the thing. And in that package includes $1.4 million for upgrades to our existing electrical system. And this is going to help us better manage the system. It's going to help us track supply and demand trends and forecast those peaks that will allow us to do peak shaving. And this is work we'd want to do anyways if we're serious about peak shaving. And we don't have those capabilities right now. We don't have that knowledge. And regardless of what source of energy we're tapping into, if we want to do peak shaving, we need that capability. And we'll build those capabilities into the solar and storage project. Further down the road, once we have that capability, maybe we won't need the panels. Maybe there'll be a critical mass of rooftop solar that we can draw from. Maybe the water main turbine technology will be advanced so that we can switch to that. But the point is, this is a step in the door, and to get us started on peak shaving. The other thing, you know, that I have real trouble with is this whole thing about excluding the $6 million from the federal government from our calculations, as if that money doesn't count. I always thought it was the excluding it was for the net present value, and the fractal report was just there to show us as a comparison of what it would be like or what would be the situation if we weren't getting that money. And so that wasn't really new information. But the fact is, we are receiving that grant, and I think we all kind of accepted from the beginning that if we weren't receiving this grant, we wouldn't be here right now talking about this. We wouldn't be doing this. But I could give you an arm's length of other projects that we wouldn't have done had we not got government funding for. I mean, most of our capital projects that we do, we rely on government funding, and this one is no different. We file that $6 million under the revenue column of our budget. It's for us, it's revenue. There may be only one taxpayer, but there are 3 governments. Each one of those governments has its own priorities. As a local councillor, I'm responsible for local priorities. I'm responsible for oversight of our local budget. It's not my responsibility how the federal government spends its money. If anybody has a problem with it, go talk to your MP. But I'd say it's worth asking what the federal government, why would the federal government would want to give us this money? What is this funding for? There's some pretty clever people who work for the federal government. I know a couple. And maybe they know some things that we don't. Maybe they know that climate change, we're going to have to adapt. Maybe they're going to need, maybe they know we're going to need to diverse energy systems and draw from multiple sources. Know that we're going to need generation and storage capabilities at the local level. And while we look at our own local needs, we have to understand the federal government's looking at national needs. And from the federal perspective, I think we have to appreciate they kind of see this as kind of a pilot and demonstration project. I know Canada doesn't have a great record in P&D and R&D, and the perception is that it's generally a waste of money. And that's probably why we're here in the middle of a pandemic and we can't even make our own vaccines. And speaking of pandemic, we've heard that, we shouldn't be spending money at this time because of the pandemic, that we should be tightening our belts. But at the exact same time, the federal government responding to the impacts of COVID by putting out a crazy amount of grant funding for projects like this. And now is not the time to be turning down grant money. Now is the time to be applying for more, if anything, because it's out there and we don't know how much longer it'll be available. I agree, federal grant money isn't free money. It's our money coming back to us. It's wishful thinking to assume if we don't take that money, it'll somehow go back into our pockets. It won't. If we don't take it, it'll go somewhere else. It'll become free money for someone else. Summerlanders will be subsidizing some other community in some other region of the country, probably Quebec, probably the Papineau constituency. I got a few more things to say, but I'm going to take a break.
Yeah, a good idea. Take a break. And we'll give Councillor Barkwell, he has his hand up, so you're next, Councillor Barkwell.
When you make a decision, you consider all the pros and cons, and you get all the facts together. I was as deeply offended as Aaron Carlson was when I knew that the information that was being presented to us was not correct, and that we weren't making an informed decision. And I felt like I had finally getting the facts together and the true information. And this was new information, and this should be brought forward. It should to correct the record. And this is what I've done. I don't know if all of you have read it. There's many points. At the July 13th meeting, I could see everybody had made up their mind. And on top of that, our $250 an hour US-based consultant was giving us completely incorrect information. And nobody on council, nobody on staff could pick up on that at all. And I don't like making decisions like that. And I felt that the record had to be corrected. I didn't even discuss the land use issue, the financial aspects of it. A lot of taxpayers are deeply offended by a project that simply is going to cost more money than it brings in. It's not like getting a new road or anything like that, but you're frigging wasting money when you have a project that has a huge multi-million-dollar net present value. And on top of that, it's still negative, even with the grant money assigned to it, when you include the cost of the land. And on top of that, all of those numbers for Fractal are skewed in favor of the solar project. They use a 35-year lifespan, which nobody uses. There's a number of things, some of them too esoteric for people to really delve into. So the whole project has been presented as a cool project. Those were Councillor Carlson's words. It's about time Summerland did something cool like this. And that's not how I make a decision. And that's how I want all the facts on the table. And that's what I felt I was doing. And today, only today, we received some new information, which maybe changes the equation. And actually, that new information makes me feel better. But I still have to figure out what it's all about. So previously, when I wrote my previous letter, which Mayor Boot said that I lacked integrity for writing to the paper, but I tell you, she has columns in the paper every week. She writes whatever she wants about, and I write too. And everybody was thanking me for that letter. And the people that supported the solar project were angry because they had previously turned down getting an evaluation on the property. And some of us are saying you can't make a proper informed decision unless you know what the value of that property is. So that letter shamed council into getting a proper evaluation of the property so we can make a better informed decision. It shamed council into releasing the information, the financial information that was in the Fractal report. So this whole process has been flawed. I don't want to hear about, oh, we had this public meeting and we had that public meeting. It was started off wrong with the incorrect and improper information on February, 28th, way back. And we haven't been getting the whole picture until now. And yes, lots of people say there's only one taxpayer, and some people care, but whatever it is, there's pros and cons for every project. And I just want to have all the information on the table. And there you go. I'd do it again. And I'm certainly not going to take any lectures from Mayor Boot about integrity.
Okay, I think before I go to Councillor Traynor and Councillor Van Elfen, and Councillor Patton, thank you. I need to address a couple of things with Councillor Barkwell. The first thing I want to ask you, Councillor Barkwell, is why did you withdraw your notice of motion?
As I said, this very afternoon, we received information that contradicted all other research that I had. So I'd like to look into it. And as I said in my email, everything that I wrote about the July 13th information and the information concerning solar remains true. And I still believe in it, and it is correct. The only thing that has changed, and the one thing that nobody expected to change, is what the emissions from solar are. And the emissions from hydro are. And so now maybe the picture's changed. I have to look into it more, but there's nothing I can do about that. That's the way it went. And I'm happy to go. My information was totally fact-driven, research-driven, and scientific. And now we've got more information than I live by the facts, and I say we've got to look into it.
Okay, sorry, I should have asked the question that I wanted an answer to. Not so did you withdraw your notice of motion, but why did you withdraw your notice of motion? And then the paper, I write every second week, and I write as the spokesperson for council. It is not only my right to do that, it is also my responsibility and my obligation to speak on council. And if we can get the message of what council is doing out to the public, I think that's a good thing. I am still going to bring up, after we've heard from our other councillors, I am still going to bring up that Councillor Carlson raised, and that is ethics and ethical behavior. That's all I'm going to say just now. I would like to go on to Councillor Traynor, then Councillor Van Elfen, and then Councillor.
So I just have a comment, I guess, about getting an appraised value for that piece of property. When we built when we did the new RCMP building, when we built the sewer treatment plant, when we did the water treatment plant, and when a couple of years ago we rezoned some land on Conkle Mountain to parkland, I don't believe we got an appraised value for housing on those pieces of property, which then was incorporated into the cost of those projects. So I'm just wondering, is this something that we would typically do for a district infrastructure project? I mean, it's nice information to have, but is it something that would be incorporated into the cost of one of our own projects on land that we own? I guess maybe our CAO could comment on that.
Through the mayor, thank you to Councillor Traynor. It's not routinely our process, as I understand it, in every infrastructure project to do land valuation as part of the detailed calculations. Certainly on a case-by-case basis, council can elect to do that, but it's not part of our routine process on things like pathways and roadways and other building and related infrastructure.
Okay, so just to follow up then. So I guess my point is that the land that we have in our district is used for a bunch of different things. It's used for housing, it's used for infrastructure, it's used for parks. I mean, the land on Conkle, if we were to put a housing value on that, I can't imagine what that would be, but we also value park space. And so I think that that needs to be considered in the equation, that there's a bunch of different needs and that we were never planning to sell that land. It's still ours. And so we maintain the value of that. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Councillor Barkwell for all his hard investigative work. And thank you to Councillor Carlson. I appreciate your passion. I truly do. You know, you mentioned something about these things should be debated at a council table. And where my dilemma is and where my problem started was in a closed meeting with a previous CAO when we were told we had to make a decision then and there, that day, on a vital piece of land. When at that meeting, I mentioned another parcel of land 1.5 kilometers down the road at the water treatment facility, 80-something acres. And at that time, I was told, no, they didn't even look at that. You know, so that's where I'm having a real dilemma. It's a $2 million piece of property. It's in our OCP for future growth area. And, you know, to say, well, you know, it's been there since you were born, and I appreciate that. Yeah, we've never put it on the market. We're sitting in one of the hottest real estate markets ever. And there's a possibility we could put a for sale sign on it and it could sell. We could do this solar site complete as designed and planned at the water treatment facility on 80-something acres just as easily. You know, but even at that meeting once, and then he said it again, our director of our electrical services said he liked that location because he didn't have to drive another 1.5 kilometers to the water treatment facility. You know, like, I don't know, like it's been frustrating for me since day one. You know, the previous council before my time, you guys, you know, came up with this. I'm not disagreeing with it. It's just, I don't agree with the location. And that's where I sit. And I appreciate you guys hearing me out. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, lost you for a minute. Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I too would like to thank Councillor Barkwell and Councillor Carlson. She is very passionate. One thing that I would like to bring up is that for me, I consider Councillor Barkwell as as a district subject matter expert in solar. I feel that Councillor Barkwell has gone so deep into solar that I do not feel that we can hold the light to what he has what he's done through his research. I have made comment in the past in regards to some staff reports where assumptions are presented to us, yet we are expected to make an informed decision based on assumptions, not on true fact. If the staff report was concise in subject matter, researched thoroughly, perhaps Councillor Barkwell would not have challenged the information that was presented. And Councillor Carlson indicated that the solar project is fully funded, which is not. We've already allotted just under $1 million into the electrical. So there is a great deal of funding that the district is putting forward to it. Yes, we are getting a government grant of $6 million, but we are also putting a lot of district money into moving the project forward. And I'm not going to go into the land selection because you know how I feel on the land selection. And yeah, it's I do think that if the reports would have been more thorough, more concise, better researched, perhaps then we wouldn't be in a situation that we are today in discussing it again. So I thank you all for your time.
Councillor Carlson.
Councillor Barkwell has his hand up. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Further to what Councillor Traynor said, yes, land costs are always considered, not for roadways and such, but take the sewer treatment plant, for example, various parcels were considered. They had to be purchased. That would go into the equation. I was told very recently, very, very nearly it was put up by the landfill, and all the sewage treatment might have being pumped uphill. There's a big story there, but in any event, if you're to say make some land into a park, you would consider the cost of purchasing that park, or you would also consider the value of that land either as being sold or turned into a park. So it's always a consideration. It should always be a consideration. It's a concept of opportunity cost, and it's not necessarily easy to calculate. And there's a fair bit of judgment and what you might include in that opportunity cost, but certainly it's relevant. And the public knows it's relevant, and the public expects us to consider it. You may, and then there could be some debate about what factors you include in that calculation, but anyhow, it's relevant. There was another. I didn't in my essays. I didn't get into the land use debate. I mean, that's water under the bridge. There's nothing new there. We said our pieces on that. I was speaking. I threw in the money part because a little bit new there, but I was speaking about the environmental impact. I couldn't reconcile our need to reduce greenhouse gases with what I saw as a project that would increase greenhouse gases. And when you add that all together, you know, like I say, it's a total package. It's a pros and cons. You weigh your conscience of there's only one taxpayer versus your conscience of, gee, you know, Summerlanders could benefit from this and all these things. But one thing that hadn't been put into the equation was the environmental impact of the project. So there's my motivation. And that's wanted to get it out there, and all those numbers are absolutely, it was not an opinion piece, it was a fact-based thing which raised the question. And I you know, that's just the way it is.
Am I frozen again?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, well.
And others appear to be frozen, at least on my screen.
I think it's you and I that have the unstable connection.
Yes. Well,
so
Karen, Graham is back now as well. Okay, can the rest of council hear me and Councillor Carlson?
We're not just talking to each other?
I don't know. I don't have any, I'm not getting any feedback at all.
I can hear you both.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Holmes.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Carlson,
okay,
you have the floor.
So thank you, Councillor Patton. I am passionate, and I've also done a lot of research on this, and I guess I find it interesting that one consultant giving one piece of information today in a open council meeting has changed the argument completely. I find that, I know you've done a ton of research, and I know you're bringing forward these numbers about 9 and 10 grams are what hydro produces. And I found the Stantec report that you're talking about. BC Hydro commissioned it in 2012 to look at Site C. And I've read all of the summaries and the analysis of what it is they're looking for. And then in 2016, a group of professionals from UBC reviewed that analysis, and they were part of the joint review panel process. And this document is also publicly available, and I'm sure Councillor Barkwill has read it, because it's the counter argument. And it basically, and I'm going to quote this document because I think it's important. It says, the Site C dam does not deliver energy and capacity at significantly lower greenhouse gas emissions than a fully automized alternative portfolio put forward by BC Hydro. The difference in life cycle emissions, if a difference exists at all, is at most 1% of BC's current emissions. Further, they state, Site C has more significantly adverse environmental effects than any project ever reviewed under the history of the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act, including impacts on dozens of species, aquatics, vegetation, wildlife, Aboriginal use of lands and resources, and cultural heritage. The federal and provincial government stated that the unprecedented level of significant adverse environmental effects from Site C are justifiable, in part because the project delivers energy and capacity at substantially lower greenhouse gas emissions than other available alternatives. Our analysis, this is UBC, indicates that this is not the case. And so I don't want to sit here and debate which renewable energy produces more greenhouse gas emissions. I think if we also look at that data that we were given today about the district's corporate emissions, electricity is the bottom line, and electricity is not going to change that much because it's all coming from renewable sources, except for the stuff that's not being calculated right now. And that's what we learned about today. There are resources that are fossil fuel based that are being imported into British Columbia. Those resources are not being counted in that emissions total. And we were told that that number could go up 11 times next year, right? It's going to be implemented and in place by June 2022. And so if that's the case, I really think it's a moot point. If Site C is a done deal and it's so environmentally friendly, like, there's all these other impacts that we could sit and debate for hours and hours about, but we're not going to do that because solar power is also a renewable energy. You could go and create you could go and buy carbon offsets for your solar panels, and now you have a net zero project. Like, it's not, like, if the company that's making those solar panels has a zero attached to it, now we have a clean energy source. There's ways to deal with these things, and I don't believe that the way that we are currently dealing with it is the right way to do it. I think that it's a waste of time and resources. And I have spent a lot of hours looking at scientific research reports and doing my own analysis over the last 2 weeks, and I have not come to the same conclusion as Councillor Barkwill. So I'm sorry, but I will continue to support this. And maybe back 5 years ago, we didn't have all the information. You know, maybe someone made a mistake. But in my recollection of the last 2 weeks, 2 letters were published because one of them had mistakes in it. So please just recognize that everybody is human and that mistakes can be corrected. And I appreciate you bringing all of these details forward. And some of them make a lot of sense. And maybe we should have thought about it, but hindsight's 2020. And I'm looking to the future now.
Councillor Barkwell, then Holmes, and then Trainer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Everything that Councillor Carlson said is true. I'm not familiar with that study. I would have to see it because studies often give you the result that, the right-wing groups will give you one answer, left-wing groups will give you another answer, right? So I'd have to look at it. The Stantec number for Site C was right in line with studies of other temperate climate dams. So I don't see, but you're right. It has all sorts of other consequences. I said that, but it's a done deal. I guess maybe more effort should have been gone to opposing it. As a matter of fact, if you don't like it, I'd say the biggest risk is that geological risk. There's a real chance it might not happen. So maybe you'll get some comfort there. It's not, dams aren't necessarily great, but when I looked up the 2, I couldn't square that circle between 40 grams for solar and 10 grams for hydro. Now maybe the difference is less material. We'll have to see that. That was published on February 8th, 2021. And the information wasn't available. We'll have to have a look and see what it's all about. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it goes.
Councillor Holmes. Sorry, Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Trainer.
Okay, thank you. I think I have a slightly different worldview than Councillor Barkwell does. I don't believe, as he says, that we'll have a surplus of power for at least the next 10 years with Site C. When I hear news like from General Motors last week that they're going to sell only zero emission vehicles by 2035, and they're going to use 100% renewable energy to power their factories by 2030. When I hear news like 5G networks will consume 3.5 times as much electricity as 4G, when I hear all the natural gas processing plants in northern BC are converting to run on electricity rather than natural gas, which they're using now for the processing. When I hear all that, and when I know that of all the energy consumed in BC, hydro accounts for only 17%, 17%. So to achieve our climate goals for 2030 and 2050, we're going to need to convert most of the things that now run off fossil fuels to run off electricity. Our cars, our buildings, industry, new technologies, innovations, everything's going to have to become electric. And to address that new demand, we're going to need a huge amount of low carbon electricity. Even while we do pursue energy efficiency, we're still going to need new electricity. And I agree with what Councillor Carlson said, pitting 2 low carbon sources like solar against hydro. That's exactly the sort of debate that the protectors of the status quo want us to have. And it's irrelevant. I think it's like 2 Vancouver Canucks fans debating who's better, Henrik Sedin or Daniel Sedin. You can make a very good case for either one of them. The point is, they were both—
Excuse me, Councillor Holmes?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Councillor Holmes.
Yes.
We have a motion on the floor. This has been bugging me. This has been bothering me for probably 15 minutes now. We have a motion on the floor. We need to be speaking to the motion that is on the floor. And the motion that is on the floor is a commitment by council whether or not we want to carry on with the solar and battery storage project. So, Councillor Traynor, if you have something to say in along those lines, please go ahead. I'm going to go back to Councillor Holmes first and let him finish, but please keep your comments relevant to the motion that's on.
I think I'm talking about the future of electricity. And isn't that what we're talking about here?
It is, but you're talking about hockey players. So let's stop with the analogies and talk about what the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Very good. Anyway, my point is that just like solar and hydro, both are good. Both are better than fossil fuels. And the two together are better than either by themselves. So if we look at why is Quebec right now, which produces more hydro than anybody, is putting up huge wind turbines, it's because they know they're going to need both. The future of electricity is to combine this intermittent solar or wind power with existing hydro dams, because it allows the solar or wind to become power that's used as it's produced. And the great thing about dams is that you can retain that water until you actually need it. And so if you look at the whole country, Quebec, Manitoba, BC, they have hydro. We have hydro. For the rest of Canada to achieve its climate goals, those three provinces are going to have to help out the other provinces to decarbonize their electricity grids.
Councillor Holmes, I'm going to ask you again. Could you please speak to the motion that is on the floor, which has to do with Summerland's solar and battery storage project? Thank you.
Never mind.
Councillor Traynor.
I was going to make a bunch of points, but I think I'll just make one for risk of topic. So I'm still in support of this project. And I think one of the main reasons is because it's a learning opportunity for us. We have the opportunity to learn more about our own power uses. And we have the opportunity to learn how to incorporate other methods of generating power into our current system. And I think that that's really important. This project has the potential to generate enough power to power up to 100 homes, to generate the equivalent of powering 100 homes. And I think given what's happened, I mean, for example, in Texas last week, when I was watching a CNN story, a professor from Princeton University said, quote, "Diverse energy systems that draw on multiple sources are more resilient." So I think that this is an opportunity for us to diversify our power sources. Right now, as we all know, we only get it from Fortis. We're reliant on them. So I think that, if nothing else, this gives us the opportunity to take one step in the direction towards learning more about our utility and how we use power, and provides the opportunity to diversify our power sources.
Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was enjoying Councillor Holmes's discussion. I felt he was speaking to the point of why we think we need more electricity, when I'm saying that we don't. In response to what he's saying, and actually he and I both agree that, you know, we're never going to achieve this whole electrification process, but regardless, there's experts, highly paid experts, who spend their full-time jobs trying to forecast our electricity demands. I'm sure they're aware of the increase in electric vehicles and such, and other electrification processes that are pending. And I wouldn't want to supplant my judgment as to what the electrical demands are going to be for theirs. And theirs are that we have lots of power until the 2030s. So, and then to Councillor Traynor's point, about resiliency. This number, this word is thrown around a lot, but there is no resiliency in these solar panels. They would provide a little bit of power if they're especially wired into some buildings for the few hours that the sun is shining. And I've made that point in the material that I've supplied to her. And the batteries, I've made this point too. The batteries are not, they have lots of other benefits, and I'll give credit where credit's due. But I want to also speak to the things where they're given credit that's not deserved. And they do have a load balancing properties and things like that, but they could have peak shading.
Councillor Barkol,
okay,
please
so I'm just
speak
getting
to the
my
motion
point.
that's on the.
And so when Councillor Traynor is speaking to the motion that she supports it and why, I'm providing reasons why the point that she has been making is not correct, in that the batteries will only provide backup for 100 to 200 minutes. This is from our manager of our electrical utility. All of our buildings already have generator backups. It would cost about $800,000 to wire in 4 buildings. So that's not sufficient backup. So they don't really, contribute towards resiliency. If you have a power wall in your house, then that's resiliency. But this project itself is not a resilient project.
Madam Mayor, I think you're frozen again. Everyone downstairs.
Councillor Traynor.
This is an incredibly frustrating discussion because of Zoom connection tonight, and everybody keeps getting cut out, and I'm missing things that people are saying.
Yes.
But I just wanted to state that.
Can you talk for 1 minute? I can't. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Councillor Carlson is unable to hear you.
I think it's okay now. As long as everyone's back. I just got kicked off, so I will.
Can everyone hear Councillor Traynor?
It's good now.
Okay, please go ahead.
So I'll just make a really quick. I just will make a really quick point. What I meant by resilient is it's giving us the opportunity to learn more about our power grid and how we use power. And I kind of see this as like a sample project, so we can see if solar will work. We can see how it might make us more resilient. But if we don't try, then we won't know. Then we're just continuing to use the same power sources and doing the same thing. And that doesn't change anything. So I think that the more opportunities that we can take to diversify our power sources, I think that that is a step in the direction towards being more resilient. That's
okay, Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Trying to speak to the motion. I am in full support of alternative energy sources. Back in the day, I talked about, turbines and different things like that. I'm excited about all sorts of alternative energy sources other than the status quo. My biggest dilemma is a $2 million piece of property. That's my hang up. I'm admitting it. And, I guess it's, maybe it's my culture. I'd love to see us sell that land and look at, and I've mentioned it before, look at other municipal pieces of property and that we aren't utilizing and putting them on the market. Be kind of exciting in 2 years' time to go to a referendum and tell the public, hey, we got $5-10 million in the bank account, towards an aquatic center. I don't know. It's just that I don't agree with the land. I think there's other pieces. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Councillor Van Alphen. I'm sorry to cut you off. Councillor Carlson.
Just wanted to reiterate that we've already had a discussion on the land and the location, and it's been chosen. I have a question for you though, Councillor Van Alphen. Do you know what the opportunity cost was calculated as when council decided to build an RCMP station downtown. Were you on council when that happened? I don't recall.
No, I'm not that old. No, I wasn't on council. Thank you. And I don't know.
Well, Councillor Barkwell, please speak to the motion that's on the floor.
Okay. Well, I was going to answer Councillor Carlson's question, but if it's not relevant, then I won't answer.
Okay. Is there any more discussion before I call the question? I know that this was difficult for council, but we really need to make sure that when there's a motion on the floor that we're speaking to the motion that's on the floor. And I know that there are councillors in this meeting that are not particularly pleased with me, but you know, that's the job. That's the job of the chair, and we need to keep this moving along. So I will ask one more time, is there any further discussion on the motion that is on the floor? Okay, I will call the question. I will first ask, because it's been over an hour, I will first ask Karen to read out again the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The motion is that council reaffirms the commitment for the solar and storage battery project in its chosen location.
I believe I used the word that council complete the project. Complete the integrated solar battery and solar project.
Okay, thank you. If I may, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
That council reaffirms the commitment to complete the solar and storage battery project in its chosen location.
Good. And that was seconded by Councillor Traynor, I believe. Is that correct, Councillor Traynor?
Councillor Holmes.
Councillor Holmes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? So Councillors Van Elfen, Barkwell, and Patton are still opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. Now, I was going to bring up a notice of motion, but given that it's 20 after 8 almost, and I know that Councillor Holmes wants to bring something out of correspondence with another notice of motion, we are going to go straight on to information items. 13.1 is the correspondence. There are a number of pieces there, and there is, I'm not sure. I think that this has been updated as well. Yes, it has. Okay. So Councillor Holmes, would you like to begin with the piece of correspondence that you'd like to bring forward, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It'd be attachment F, the Climate Caucus Help Cities Lead letter. And I would like to, this actually came from the Climate Caucus. I'd like to bring forward this motion, and I would ask that if we could discuss it and debate it tonight, because they're having a meeting regarding this with an Attorney General and Minister of Housing on March 9th. And our next council meeting is on March 8th. So it'd make the timing somewhat tight. So I would seek consensus if we could have a vote on it tonight.
Okay.
So the motion would be that the district write a letter to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, the Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Attorney General and Minister responsible for housing, and the Minister of Finance, expressing support for the direction set out in the November 2020 ministerial mandate letters regarding greenhouse gas requirements for new buildings, PACE financing, and home energy labeling.
Okay, Councillor Holmes, seconder. Councillor Carlson? Great. Now, before we begin discussion, we have to have a, is this correct? Tell me if this is correct, Karen. We need a vote of council to determine if we're going to speak about this at this meeting, which is the request of Councillor Holmes and, you know, clearly a requirement. Is that correct? We need to.
As this is a piece of correspondence that's being brought forward, it's perfectly okay for council to consider this resolution.
Oh, perfect. Good. Okay, so it's on the floor now. Did you wish to speak, Councillor Holmes, further on this?
Yeah. I'll just briefly. I mean, the information's there. I provided it to everybody, but so all three of these items are already included in the ministerial mandate letters. So the results of resolutions passed in past years from UBCM, from lobbying, from groups like Climate Caucus and Help Cities Lead campaign, and the government has said they're going to do these things. That's why they're in the ministerial letters. But as we know ourselves, you know, you have all these different priorities, and some of them don't always make the cut, and so. So this is just an attempt to make sure that the government, you know, does what it says it's doing. And I'm happy to speak to any of these three if you want, but if you don't feel a need, it's okay.
I have a question. Did you? I know that you are speaking about the commitment to sending a letter. Did you also, are you also asking that council endorse the Help Cities Lead campaign? Or is that something that you'll bring up later?
No, so, well, I wasn't worried about that. It wasn't that urgent, I didn't think. I mean, we can. It wasn't really, I hadn't really given it any thought, but I don't have a problem either way.
Okay.
Just the Climate Caucus asked me, you know, to bring this motion forward because they're meeting with the minister and they want to have as much support as they can, and it doesn't commit us, you know, for doing any of these things. Actually, some of these things we're doing a couple of things where we've already started on ourselves with our own discussions with like energy labeling. It's kind of part of a lot of local governments already have some ability to establish their own programs, but there's the lack of provincial regulations. It's creating this patchwork system around the province, and that inconsistency is kind of frustrating for industry. So so you know, it's more of just to encourage the province to move along those lines that it said it's going to move along.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Barkwell.
Sorry, I forgot my hand was up.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? I have another one for you, Councillor Holmes. Oh, there's Doug, Councillor Patton. Okay. My other question is, given the presentation that we had today on the corporate emissions, energy and emissions plan, and the one that we had last year on the community plan, do you think that this will be helpful in implementing? I can see myself, I think it would be helpful in implementing, but does this cover, the information that I've read on PACE is that it's for residential applications. Is there any possibility, do you think, and I'm not sure what you've heard, that it might be extended to, you know, local government projects as well?
I think that'll depend on the province, what legislation they bring forward. There's a lot of questions about PACE and I think we'd really have to wait to see what the province brings forward to know what we can and can't do. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the motion is on the floor. I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Any other correspondence that Council would like to bring forward? Councillor, or sorry, not Councillor. Karen, did you have your hand up?
No, Madam Mayor.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will go on to item 14, which is councillor reports. And let's start with Councillor Traynor today.
I don't have anything to report except the fact that I spent hundreds of hours reading solar papers and hydro papers and everything that Richard provided for us. So I'm tired.
Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Councillor Barkwell?
I think I could say the same. I spent far too much time reviewing papers and articles and data concerning solar, hydro, wind, and had no committee meetings or anything.
Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that I thought the SILGA virtual presentation last week was really good. I think it's a really good format at lunchtime, half hour, 45 minutes of your lunchtime. I think it's a really nice model, and it's a really you know, there was a good attendance. I think it's a really good thing SILGA's doing, and it's certainly a good start. I was hoping for that we'd have more conversation amongst, you know, everybody who's on the call afterwards, but maybe that's just the, you know, for the first one, I thought it was really good. And so we could pass on my congratulations to SILGA, and I certainly encourage everybody else to tune in to these, because they're well done.
Great, thank you, Councillor Holmes. I will pass that on to the executive. And as I mentioned in my council update, the next one is on February the 24th, which is Wednesday at noon, and it's our UBCM president, Brian Frankel. So that should be an interesting one as well. And Councillor Carlson, they are being recorded, and you can have access to those provided you register. Okay, thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Van Elfen.
Nothing to report at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patton.
I just wanted to say that on Thursday night, I did attend the information session also in regards to the units going on Jubilee. And I must say, staff did a great job. It was very informative. I thought that it was very well ran, and yeah, it was a good information session. Other than that, Madam Mayor, I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you to both yourself and Councillor Holmes for representing the district at that. I was otherwise engaged, but that's great to have council there. Oh, and Councillor Van Elfen as well. Thank you, sir. Okay, Councillor Carlson.
Not much to report. There was an Okanagan Regional Library board meeting last week. We have new board chair. Sherry Philpott Adukiari from Karamias is now chair of the ORL. And things are moving forward. There's hopefully to be a new library built in West Kelowna in combination with the new City Hall. That's all come public in the last little while, so they're hoping that that will go smoothly and quickly. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else of importance to mention, but library usage is back up to where it always has been. So I guess people are staying home and reading books, and also using lots of online resources. So if you're ever looking for some new entertainment, there's tons of options available. Lynda.com and Rosetta Stone and all those things are available from your local library for free. So don't forget to, you know, not just watch Netflix and go on Zoom meetings, but find other things to keep yourselves entertained as well. So thanks very much.
Following up on what Councillor Carlson just said, and this is not watching Netflix, but it is watching film. Through the Okanagan Regional Library, you can sign up with your library card, and every Friday they will send you their a whole listing of different films that they are presenting through Canopy. And they are all on Chromecast, so you can Chromecast them to your television as well. They're really, I mean, I would say for the most part, they're quite independent films and some really good stuff I've watched. So that's another offering or a service that our Okanagan Regional Library is offering for free. So thanks for that, Councillor Carlson. Okay. Now, I don't have anyone on the list, but Karen, is there anybody that has hung out with us for the evening?
No, there is no one available or on the line. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I will call for adjournment then, please. Councillor Van Elfen and Carlson, all in favor?